Okay. So, for the sake of the lovely recording, this is Samsarah Morgan, Executive Director of the Open Better Birth Foundation and Shiphrahs Circle Community Doula Program. This is our regular Tuesday night meeting, but we have special guests. And the special guests are two amazing human beings who I'm treasured to love and who I have nothing but wonderful, good feelings about, who have been my students, and Jenna's been my client. So that's kind of cool. We're getting ready to start working soon with uh, folks who have Medi-Cal, Anthem Blue Cross Medi-Cal. And so I thought it would be really great to have y'all come back because, we are a wonderful, culturally diverse doula practice, which I'm really happy about. And there is a specific piece around how it feels to be a white person in service to Black and Brown people. So, I'm totally aware that everybody's got their own experience, and I'm not trying to, put you guys in a place where you speak for white people, because that's kind of silly. People do that to me all the time. As a Black person, I'm really never appreciating that. But what I think is really juicy is to hear what that experience was for you. What impact did it have on the rest of your life, if any? What you learned about yourself, and all like that. Uh, Christine is not hearing us, but she will log back in, so that's what we will hear from her soon. So who wants to go first? Tess or Jenna? Tess or Jenna?
Sure, I can start.
You know.
Hi everyone. My name is Tess. And it's been a while, but I did Samsarah's training and was working with Samsarah maybe like 6 or 7 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that. It is lovely to be here and to see some familiar faces that I didn't know I was going to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I I didn't like plan out what I was going to say, but I'm just going to see what comes out. I'll start by saying that, I was pretty young when I started my training with Samsarah, and I was coming from like a pretty privileged, sheltered white person background. Um, so that's like the perspective that I can sort of speak to of where I was coming from when I started to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I learned so much. I mean, like, yeah, totally changed my life. And I'm grateful that I did it when I did, because of how much I learned about just myself as a white person and what it means to move through this world, that I really didn't know before. Just not really being exposed to a lot of other perspectives. One of the, I think, really biggest things that I learned about, and this is like, relevant to everything, relevant to being a doula with anyone, and especially in the context of being a white doula working with young Black mothers, just like the importance of listening, like really, truly listening. Um, because I would show up and I had, done my doula training and like learned my stuff and I knew, about pregnancy and birth and had like knowledge to share, right? Or like skills to share and things like that. And my life experience really could not have prepared me to be able to like understand where these clients were coming from and what their experience is like and how the the knowledge or information I might have to offer would land with them based on like where they were coming from. Um, so like, even with things as simple as like if I'm going to be talking about nutrition and diet and like maybe wanting to make like diet recommendations, if I was not able to actually hear them when they told me like what they have access to, what they know how to cook, what they like to eat, then like none of the information I could provide is going to do any good if I'm not hearing that from them, and finding a way to meet them where they were at. Um, and also like really like subtle subconscious assumptions that I would make based on my own life experience that were just off, um, about anything. So like making sure you're really listening and like asking questions, asking clarifying questions, not assuming that like I necessarily know what they mean or necessarily know what they're talking about based on, um, where I'm coming from in my experience. Yeah, that's that's listening. Also finding ways to build trust, um, especially with these like young mothers, teen mothers, folks who like have been let down a lot, folks who have been let down a lot by people like in positions of authority or in like care provider types of roles. Like that's a big thing for folks. So finding ways to really build trust and to show them, show your clients that you are going to show up the way you say you're going to show up. Um, which also speaks to like the importance of getting clear about that for yourself. Like not committing to things that you can't actually follow through on. Um, because again, especially with the teen moms, Christina kind of referred to this, they can put you through a lot. They might ask you for a lot because they don't necessarily have other folks in their life who they can call on when they need like a ride to Walmart or like, someone to come and clean their house before the CPS agent comes, or, whatever the case may be. Um, they, if you become a person that they realize they can rely on, um, you need to get really clear about like what you can actually offer, what you can actually commit to, so that your yeses are solid yeses and your nos are clear nos, and they learn that they can like trust that and count on you to show up for what you say you're going to show up for. I think that's like really, really important. Always with everyone, but especially with folks who have been let down a lot. Um, and it'll help with building trust, which will allow them to open up to you and actually talk to you and give you the chance to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, those are kind of the main things that come up for me when I think about your questions, Samsarah.
And of course, I'm not going to mention any client's name. So, but I am remembering a client who like just like fired you. Like she just fired. She was just like
I think
done.
I got fired a couple times.
She got fired a few times. And we talked about that, and firstly, Anita, I always want to give you tremendous props. Uh, you handled all of that with so much grace. You really did. And that definitely helped the situation a whole lot. And I remember having a conversation in your car with you one time. We were talking about the fact that the population that we were caring for at that time had been raised up in foster care. So you get to be, lucky you get to be the first white person that they get to tell back off of me ever in their lives. And usually in that system is a punitive system. I akin it to being in jail. You're rewarded and punished, and you can't trust people because they're writing down everything you say, right? And so there was almost a giddiness about getting to fire you. And then they pop back later.
Yep, they totally did.
Pop
Yes.
back later, and where's Tess? Where's she been? We're like, you fired her. No, I did. Yes, that was you. How do you feel that period of time has touched your life? How do you feel that has helped with your Tessness in the world?
Well, it really like taught me how to actually do those things I just talked about, like how to actually listen to people, how to actually show up for people. Um, I mean, being in your doula groups, I'm sorry, I've told you this, was sort of like my uh, introduction to anti-racism 101, like life course. Um,
I'm proud of that.
and like being able to be in circle with you and with other birth workers of color, and being able to serve clients of color, having come from life experience where like essentially everyone I knew prior to that was white, obviously completely changed my life and my worldview. And I'm not doing birth work anymore, but I think that like all of the skills that I learned, both like in the specific context of birth work and in the context of like anti-racism, you know, I've like totally brought with me into my life, and I think I'm a much I think I'm a better person for it. Um and yeah, I mean, I think that there was something for me coming from where I was coming from, a lot of privilege. I think there was something that was like important, very important for me to like to serve these clients, to like really just like pick up that call, like, oh yeah, like you need a ride to Walmart or like whatever, and be like, okay, like I can do that. Like I'm available, I have a car, like I can show up for you in that way. Um, and I think that was really important work for me to do. Um, and yeah, I mean, more than anything, it taught me how much I didn't know about anything, which is a helpful life lesson.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was an honor to work with you. You know, we took care of teen moms, and you will also work with me on our middle class mamas too. And so it was an absolute pleasure. And thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk to Miss Jenna now, and then we'll open up for questions. So,
Hi, I'm Jenna. First, I just have to say I got a little verklempt there, Tess, because I remember these moments when we were working together with clients and I was a little bit further along. And I remember you in the early days. And I really just think that you already had so many of the skills that were set up for you to get the next set of skills, if that makes sense. But I got a little verklempt hearing you talk about it because you are amazing. So I started, well, so before I got into birth, I had already started some white privilege work and social justice work. I'd been working on it really since high school, but more once I got into college, just as it was a family value that I grew up with. I was lucky. I grew up very white and privileged as well, but with a history of activism that told us that, you know, we have responsibility because we are privileged to speak out and use it well. So, and then my husband and I hired Samsarah as our doula for our first child, and we all fell in love. And I just stayed with birth. And I got to work also with the birth center that was operating Sacred Birthplace and Selena Green. And I was incredibly blessed to work. I believe most of the time I was the only white person there. And I was very lucky and blessed and continuously grateful that they let me be there and told me to shut up and let me listen. And it evolved my anti-racism mind and practice as well. And so I'm super grateful for that. and working with the population, the teen moms, I used to call it direct entry therapy, because we weren't working with everyone had some trauma because they were taken from their families and then from the organizations that they were interacting with through foster care. And then not a single, I didn't have a client who wasn't sexually assaulted. So just having to, like Tess said, just really listen, slow down, especially when you're a new doula, you're like, I'm going to do all the stuff and it's going to be great. And it's just like you got to slow down and like start. The work that I found that gave me the best interactions with people is when I slowed down and I got to my core self and not all of the static that floats around here, all the shoulds and the wants and the fears but like get to my core self, listen, and then listen some more, check my reactions, don't share them with the clients, like really do the work so that I was bringing something that they wanted and nothing more, and also really resourcing myself. So when stuff did come up, I talked to somebody else about it. And I had my elders and my elders of color, and I also had white elders, because there was just stuff that I needed to process to get to the next phase of my anti-racism that needed to go through that lineage. And so that's a big one, like resource yourself with elders. And if you're a white person, with white elders, so that you can do that are doing this work, so that you are processing with the appropriate people. Working with teens is super amazing. They test you, and you can be, I remember being often fascinated by choices that were made. And also just some of the most inspiring births that I've seen, like really watching people who have been systemically disenfranchised and disempowered, finding sparks of power and empowerment in being asked what their choice is and saying it and getting it, sometimes, not all the time, and going through the intensity of labor and birth and doing it, and how many times they looked up after the experience with a different spark in their eye, like, hey, look at me, like I've got power here, that was definitely something that was food along the way. But I know, I think Tess was so eloquent. I'm also piggybacking on so much of what she said. I also think that if you are a white person working with people of color, you got to do the work. You got to read the books, do the workshops, do the work. It's internal work. It's not always easy, but I almost request, like, don't serve people of color unless you're doing the work of anti-racism in your body and in your community. Like, I have a book list if you guys want it, but really, like, because the harm of giving help in a white colonial way is also harm. And so I very much request all white people to do this work. It's continuous, it's not easy, it's rewarding, and it helps us create the world that we want to live in, but do the work.
How do you feel? Thank you, first of all. How do you feel this work has shifted you, changed you, added to, taken away from your Jenna liciousness?
I think that birth work became my spiritual practice. And though I still do birth work, but much, much less. But it is the slowing down, it's the listening, it's the self-regulating, it's the decentering myself, decentering my experience. It's a practice and you get better at it, and I'm still practicing. And I think that like when you're in the moment in labor or with a client who's having an issue or even a crisis, those are the moments that teach you like how to show up in the world in a way that's truly in service.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's deepened my spiritual practice. It's made me a better person. Has helped me get closer to being the person that I intend to be.
Yeah. So I am just feeling so much right now. I'm feeling so much gratitude for folks who do show up to do the work. You know, and I really resonate with what you said a little while ago, Jenna, is that if you're not willing to do the work, please stay away from Black and brown people because you will harm them. And there has been enough harm. We also have to take a look at light skin privilege. We also have to look at the privilege we get based on what body we have. Male bodies get more privilege than female bodies. All that stuff. You know, and there's a way, I do believe, and I certainly have used my middle class privilege to support my clients. So how can you take this gift you were given that sometimes you didn't have to work for? I worked really hard for my middle class privilege, thank you. However, how do you use your privilege to be in service is the most important thing. That's why I don't have a problem with the word doula. There's a lot of flurry in certain doula groups. Like, I don't want to be a doula. I don't want to be a servant. And I close my computer at those conversations, and I could put my phone down because I know that I personally have no problem being the servant of birth. And I have no problem being the servant of creative life force. And I love being with people when they're going through big transitions. I'm also like a big chunk of my training, other than my birth worker life, is ministry. And that's what ministry should be. It's not about collecting a lot of money and looking nice in a 3-piece suit. Some people are very confused. It's about, being in the dirt with people and crawling with them and being ecstatic when they stand up and they give you all the credit and you tell them, oh, no, that was you. I watched you do that, but that was you. Thank you for letting me watch you and help you do that. And we need that in so many aspects of our lives. Everyone's starved of mentorship. And the corporate model is, yeah, you work for me, but I'll take all your resources. So it's not you, it's XYZ Corporation that you are producing for. And it's a model that I truly despise, So I'm happy to see both of you folks doing well in life. And I want to open it up to anybody else in the circle who wants to ask questions, or how did you feel based on what our friend said?
Just a quick comment, listening to that was not only inspiring, but you know, being a woman of color, being a queer woman of color, also being a sexual assault survivor and a light-skinned woman, and, you know, all these other little, you know, things that go along with being a woman and all of these things, you know, I did the training too, you know, not being, just because I'm all those things doesn't mean I'm qualified to handle the things that come with being me, because doing the work and taking the training and learning the things and being present and witnessing it all comes together all over the course of tons and tons of time. But I just really resonated with, you know, if you don't do the work and you don't take the training, stay away from people that you can't help, because you will hurt them and hurt them deeply, and it'll just be yet another trauma that they have to hurdle. And it's extremely important to follow those guidelines, and I just really resonated with that, and I really thankful that was said. So that's all.
How are we feeling, people? I know it's folks are processing heavy things this evening. And so we have another little light class for you to be in, but
well, I really loved what everybody said. I just wanted to come in and ask about the teen dads, because I know we talked a bit about teen pregnant folks, and I know Tess and I we worked with a teen mom and dad, and we that worked out really wonderfully. And so maybe I was hoping that you guys could maybe touch on that a little bit, on, you know, doulas working with teen dads, you know, if they're in the picture and they're involved in the situation.
I'm thinking.
anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, I'm just remembering, Christina, if you're talking about the same client and the same dad who like almost missed the birth of his baby, but you caught him as he was like coming back to the hospital from like getting a snack, and you were like, run, the baby's coming, and he like ran into the hospital room like literally as the baby was being born. He made it.
Yeah.
The baby came fast out of nowhere, but he made it. And yeah, that was really sweet. I remember him like leading this beautiful prayer around the baby, and yeah, the teen dads who were present, it can be really sweet and really powerful, and yeah, I think that's always kind of a thing with doula clients, is finding ways to include the partners, and yeah, I don't know. I'll keep thinking, but Jenna, if you have things to say.
You know, I didn't get to interact with too many teen dads that were there. I got to interact with some pretty abusive partners. And in that case, often I never tried to be like, you're bad, you're wrong. I would be like, you know, she doesn't want to see you right now. So I could do things upon mama's request. But my goal was always to keep a clear line of communication. And even though sometimes they would do stuff that would piss me off and pull out my dragon mama, where I was like, oh, you know, like, oof, if I wasn't in this role right now, like, you're hurting my mama. Mostly I just tried to keep a clear line of communication so that when and if it was needed, there was still a bridge there, you know. That was another good time to have an elder to process with. Thank you, Samsarah. But really just not wanting to alienate, separate, you know, this is probably another person with trauma that I got to deal with. So I wasn't mine to interact with, but I also just didn't want to like build a wall there. Because if there was a need of communication that I could keep open, then that was my goal. I think with partners of any gender, any age, the big challenge is that partners in general historically haven't really, like, even just my father's generation, he was one of the odd ones who was in the room when I was born. Like, so generationally, there isn't a whole lot of information where the dad goes, well, you know, this is what happens with birth, and then this is how you change a diaper, and this is what, you know, what she's going to go through postpartum. Who talked to anybody about that? And parents who, you know, I mean, like in the 80s, where were my parents? I don't know what they were doing. You know, so it's like there wasn't any training, there wasn't passed down wisdom. So I feel like, especially when I was having my babies 13 and 9 years ago and doing this work, I noticed that a lot of partners just had this wonderful intention of showing up, but had no information of how to do that. You know, like how do you actually show up? Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you should go pick up pads for her. Yeah, that's a normal thing to do. It's okay. Like, just even like little things like that, being like, I hear how you want to show up for this person, and you're making it up. You're making it up. This generation of showing up, being in the births, and partners co-parenting in these really more involved ways than they have in previous generations, they're kind of making it up. So connecting them with each other and saying things that sometimes seem obvious, like, you know, I'm hearing that she needs you to just go pick up some pads.
That's a very, very, very good point. I mean, in this culture, you know, when I started having kids is when we started to see dads in delivery rooms in the hospital. They weren't happy about it, but they were there. In this specific population that we're talking about tonight, I mean, there were no older guys. There was no dad. There was no grandpa to say, hey, and at least hand them a cigar and say, congratulations, you're going to be a father. Right? There wasn't even that. Even though that's not sufficient either, but men used to at least get that. Get a clap on the back. Go out to drink with the guys.
Yeah, like in the clients that Tess and I worked with, the father was also in foster care, or like had
often, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have these two traumatized people who've come together and made a third person, and neither one has had an adequate rite of passage. The birth can be a rite of passage for the female partner. Can be. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just had a baby. A rite of passage is a specific thing. Many of our moms, I have to say, in my opinion, did have a rite of passage. Yeah. Many of them. And I'm still in touch with a whole bunch of them. And overall, the posse's doing pretty well. So that's kind of nice. You know, and it's nice to bump into them. I've got a chunk of them with friends on Facebook, and I see what they're up to, which is really sweet. And there is a specific joy in playing such a significant part in a young person's life. That's the joy of parenting too. And these skills are good partnering skills, good parenting skills, good human being skills. Everybody should work with teen pregnant people. Everybody. And we used to culturally do that better. You know, culturally, we took a lot better care of ourselves not that long ago. It's very scary to me now when folks are having babies at whatever age. Even people in their 30s and 40s are completely unsupported, away from family or friends, family might not be supportive, work's not supportive, COVID's not supportive. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And we need each other like good primates. We need each other to go through these rites of passage. And us complicated primates have made elaborate rites of passage. And so, how can we recreate those that will fit well and work well in the culture that we're living in now? That's the challenge in front of us. And that's why doulas are so bloody successful, because just our presence and just our touch, start listening and not listening to the movie inside of our head, just playing all the time, to actually hear what the person is saying to us is everything. That's why therapy works when you have a good therapist. Oh my God, 50 minutes with another human being just listening to you and not looking at their phone and not looking at the clock and actually paying attention. That's such a gift in this culture that we have to pay for. Hey, oh my goodness. Look at that beautiful person. Hi. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm weeping with joy. She is so beautiful. She's still sassy?
Yeah, she got her first B today, and it's been a really rough day. And
Lord.
I know, I'm like, calm down, like it's fine. That's not from us. She's really tough on herself. We're like, whatever.
She's lovely. How's her little bro?
It's like having a cartoon character loose in the house. Yeah.
So, any more questions, comments, statements, feelings?
One thing I just also wanted to say about partner is that when I do childbirth ed or childbirth prep with clients, I gear a lot of it towards the partner, because what I want to see is that whatever comes, if they have a traumatic birth, whatever comes, is that I am pointing out and fostering good communication and good touch and good awareness of each other so that they can meet whatever comes up. And because often for male-bodied partners, like, they didn't have a whole lot of encouragement to be emotionally intelligent. It's often true, not always. And so, like, giving a little permission to get mushy and get all, get a little sweet with each other, and supporting it and cheering it on, I think is a big part of success with partners for that I've experienced with my practice.
It's really interesting with young folks and older folks too, because I find myself wondering, like, okay, how did y'all make this baby? Because not judging, but visualizing. It's like, didn't y'all have to get mushy to make the baby? That's what I remember. But you're watching people, sometimes young people, sometimes older people, learning about intimacy through the birth of their child. They may have done what you need to do biologically to make a baby, but now they're learning to communicate, learning whether they really are a couple, learning whether, sometimes just because two people made a baby doesn't mean that they're a couple. Learning each other's love language, which I like the thought of that, because everybody feels love differently. That makes sense. And how to help the birth of this child be a birth for the parents as well is a real winning ticket. one of the things that our practice is going to be doing more of, because we have Jesse who's committed to do the work with us around supporting pops and Papa people. Yeah, power to the pops. And I'm really glad that, I pray for things and God just gives me what I want. I'm just God's spoiled child. I'm like, God, I want that. And Jesse's a boy. I'm like, yay! So it's beautiful. So we'll be looking at, what that looks like and really helping our helping our community. We recently have a beautiful clients who were mature, college educated, professorial people. And the dad was like, I am appalled that I didn't know all this stuff. Like, I'm grown and I didn't know all this stuff. I should have known this long ago. And I'm like, yeah, so we're gonna address that. And the work continues. Anyone else with feelings or comments or questions or anything like that?
That just reminds me of this visit that me and Priscilla had, like, for one of our clients, and we went to go to her house for our meeting, and her partner kept like dipping in and out, but he was kind of distracted, like doing something else, and we brought out the reboso and we were like moving and doing hip squeezes, and he like kind of came in and peeked, and he was like, what's going on in here? And Priscilla's like, why don't you come figure it out? And so we're just like kind of playing around, and it was kind of awkward, and we were just all laughing. And I think Priscilla said something along the lines of like, don't be afraid to like put your hands on her, like she's like, how did you get pregnant? It was just so funny. I was like, wow, I can only imagine how easily that can happen. It's like you have people coming in your home, you're like not sure what's exactly going to take place. You're in this vulnerable position of, like you were saying, like they want to help but they don't know how, which is why I'm like assuming why he kept kind of coming in but didn't want to fully come in without that invitation. So it's just so important to have that person there, like facilitating that welcome, that open space. So yeah, it's a funny story.
And the invitation is so powerful. To not assume that he's just going to come in. There is this thing that, very often men of color will be more respectful of women's space. If there's women in the space, they're not going to go in the space. That's women's space. I'm going to go be a man here by myself, which is very lonely. You're talking about his baby, right? So that's very wonderful to get that invitation into the space and see that he belongs there. And the women smile when he comes in.
I'm happy to see more guys and more masculine identified individuals in general taking the initiative to be involved in the process and be a part of it, which I'm seeing a lot more. And I'm really happy about that. Even I met a doula today who is becoming a doula because his birth with his wife went so well. And so I'm just so happy to see that starting to blossom. It's really really going to be an amazing thing, I think.
I think it's such a wonderful thing for children, and it's such a wonderful thing for relationships, and it's such a wonderful thing for co-parenting, even if the two people who made the baby are not together, but then, these people feel an equal sense of agency and affection enough of each other to be able to guide that child through life. So we don't have another young person growing up with no mentors. That has to stop.
I'd like to add in, it's a good thing for the world, because the idea that being nurturing is a feminine trait, that's an idea that needs to move on. And that's so isolating for, male-bodied and masculine children to be like, oh, to be this, then I don't have access to that whole emotional landscape and what that gives.
It's also about toxic patriarchy because, you know, indigenous ways have much more room for people to just freaking be who they are. And the roles flow. There's not strict boxes on people. And it makes me so sad that we can't take a deep breath on that. But yeah, I mean, we all should be in this. Well, shouldn't should on. You shouldn't should. Don't should on people. Dads, I'm sorry. It would be much more helpful if we took good care of each other, looked in on each other. You know, it's a specific passion of mine. We started out, you know, kind of talking about moms, but of course, it makes perfect sense that we're talking about the dads. And you know, I've raised 5 sons, and I see one of the things that has always been helpful to me is that I've raised 5 sons, and so I see how hard life is for males, and how important it is for me as their mother to have interceded for them numerous times between entities and corporations and worldviews that see them as monsters and want them to be monsters. So then they can blame them for being monsters after they've made them monsters. Right? So that's part of the work we do. We're dealing with papas and male-identified folks. We are helping them to be connected with how amazing they are, how wonderful they are, how we, you know, oh my goodness, of course this is, you don't have to ask to touch your own baby, that's your baby. You know? So yes, it's good work that we do. I want to make sure that if anyone else has something to say, that they have said it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate the recurring theme of the work continuing, because even when I started like working my own private practice, I've definitely come back to you, Samsarah, especially in situations where I was serving a family of a different ethnicity than my own. And that's an ongoing learning experience and continues to be, and working with colleagues and like finding new colleagues here who are either allies or birth workers of color. Like it's an ongoing practice. And I also appreciated, I don't remember which of you said, like that having an activist background or like liberal leaning parents or whatever doesn't like mean you are born with all the work done. And something that stood out to me in that experience when I did need to turn to Samsarah for some support in terms of really just like helping myself to be both learning and delivering the information I need, when I had a couple who also had 2 very different cultures. Like one was a Black American person, and one, the other partner had like recently come from a place in Africa where he had like a very distinct experience. So it was like a lot of learning on all ends. And it kept us coming back to having initially laid the groundwork of like, if I'm not sure about something, or I don't know if I have an answer for you, like I'm probably just gonna tell you that, and I'm gonna ask you questions because I want to know how things are going for you and how things are landing for you. And it wasn't a teen, it was an adult, but she really appreciated that I like set the groundwork for asking questions, and I learned that from Samsarah and from this circle. The thing that I'm curious to see how I do next time I'm serving a client with a different ethnicity than me is navigating the family, because I didn't have the relationship with the family that I had with the client, and there was all kinds of like power dynamics and suspicion and like confusion and like internalized classism and stuff that came around the fact that she had hired a light-skinned doula. So there'll be more learning in the future, I'm sure.
I am so sure that was a little smoky.
I always found that when I was working with clients too, of just also putting it out there, like I'm really curious about you and what you need. And, you know, if there's stuff that comes up around whatever the issue, class, race, sexuality, gender, like that I am not getting right, please say something to me. Like I'm not here to make this mine. I'm here to support you. So please let me know when I'm getting things wrong. And then when they do say something, you receive that, and maybe you need space and be like, you know, and then you don't just drop it. You say something like, you know, I'm going to take some time to process this. Can I come back around to you? But like have a plan and order afterwards. Or, you know, if you have a response, something like, you know, I'm really sorry that impacted you. But sometimes, depending on whatever the person's life experience is, that doesn't even seem like a possibility. Like you just wouldn't even say that to someone who is of a different race, class, gender, or sexuality to you, particularly to someone who might have privilege over you in that ism.
Right. It could be life-threatening. You speak the truth to the wrong person and then the cops come and take your kids away.
Yeah.
That is the reality for lots of people. And so it's really important to not go on, well, I'm a nice white person. Not helpful.
That's something to process with your white elders who are in the anti-racism process further along than you.
Yeah. You know, and there's things, we'll be looking at that, having a male doula in the practice, women's response to a male doula in a culture where how many women have been abused by somebody who identified as male. That's a hard one.
It's not been easy.
You know, so we need to, you take a deep breath, and we do, when you want to hold on to your inner child, because that's an inner child response. Oh, I'm a good person. That's true. It's just not appropriate right in the moment for you to be processing that out loud. But inside, you can scoop up your inner child and go, yes, you're a good person. You are. This is somebody else having a reality that we're trying to support. This is not the reality of us. But this, you know, we're all projecting all the time. We're running movies on each other all the time, right? And this person's seeing a bad movie, but that's not me. You get to do that work, and definitely later on you get with your elders, you call me, you call supportive friends, and then just settle yourself. And it is painful how much pain there is in the culture. Everybody's being molested and abused by almost everybody. It's really, when you think about it, it's kind of overwhelming, you know? So taking a deep breath is always a good thing. Remembering who you are a good person, and you mean no harm. And letting that person's experience be their experience. It's not about you, it's about what they have been through, what past things have happened, and how much healing they've had about those things. Sometimes it's best to step away. Even if you're the nicest white person in the world, you might not be able to be the one to work with that specific Black person, and that's okay. I'm going to get you somebody that feels safe to you, that feels like safety. I'm sorry it can't be me.
And we don't have a culture of accountability either. Like, so there are times when it's going to be somebody else's stuff that's projected on you, and you may be like, okay, I see that that's not mine. I'm not going to take that on. Mm-hmm. You can do acknowledgement. And then there's times when, you know, for lack of a better word, stupid white shit tumbles out your mouth. So like, you know, or you make a move that is, your intention is this, but the impact is this. The way to build the trust and the way to build healing is to be accountable. Be like, oh, I'm a good person, but that, you know, I also made a mistake, or I overstepped, or so both of those things can be true at the same time.
Yes. Being able to check when we're being codependent is really important. Because codependency is the toxic stuff splashed in the water. That's the toxic Kool-Aid. You know, nobody wants you to do for them what they could do for themselves. Even though they might drain you dry, they will hate you for it. Because part of them knows that they could do it for themselves. So when is it helping? When is it codependency? That's the internal work. You know, how to, because our work is about empowerment. There's another silly thing that I hear doulas talking about. Oh, I can't even go into other doula circles unless it's ours anymore. It's not our job to empower the client. I'm just like, what? Really? So why do they need your butt there? Now the client has to do the work of empowerment. We don't have a little wand that goes twinkle and you're empowered. Right? That part I can say. The client has to be ready to reach in, dig down deep, and we're the cheerleader. We're like, go, 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 empowerment, empowerment. But if we're not there doing that, what? There's so much silliness going on in doula circles nowadays. I'm not even trying to. Y'all are the only doulas I like. Just like, wow. How did we get those great statistics that we had? All the studies that are done on doulas. If you're just sitting in the corner doing nothing. I've had so many nurses say to me, wow, you're the first doula I've seen actually do something. Because I see doulas in the room just kind of sitting there doing nothing. I've shown up to births with what, 3, 4 students. And everybody's busy. Nobody's on their phone.
Unless you're taking pictures.
Unless you're taking pictures. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, we are the good elders in the village. And the good elders in the village, their presence facilitates empowerment for others. As we work on our own self and we have our own community and this great cycle of people feeding each other life force energy. It's not a little thing. It's a super important thing. And we need it all over the place, you know, not just in doula circles. We need it in the White House. We need it everywhere. Anything folks wanted to say? Checking time. We're doing good for time.
I wanted to give my gratitude to everyone. I really appreciate hearing again, you know, to really listen. Like, you know, I heard Tess say, listen and then listen some more. And Jenna, you were like, you know, listen and then stop and then keep listening, and to like quiet the, you know, the noise that's up here. And Samsarah, like you're talking about your inner child's like, where? Like, that's not me, where? And being like, okay, like I'm gonna quiet this. I'm gonna like pat your inner child back. Gonna really listen, and then to seek further, you know, guidance, to come back and say, okay, this was this experience that I had, Samsarah, or, you know, whoever your elders are, who are like trusted, non-abusive elders. Because I've definitely when you were talking about like going to your white elders, I'm like thinking about some of my white elders, Jenna, and like don't know that, how helpful they would be.
Mhm.
Um, but seeking guidance from people doing real work, doing healing work, um, to help reframe, to help see, okay, like, yeah, you did mess up. Yeah, that was what you said. Um, could be construed as dangerous. Because it's an opportunity to learn, and I appreciate, Jenna, you saying like letting people know, like, please inform, like, please let me know, like, it's okay to let me know if I say something, if I do something, and also understanding that may not be comfortable for them and they may not say something to you, and so being aware of what you do and say and how you act and engage. And
The story of the United States of America needs to always play in our heads. Who colonized who dominated who hurt who.
mm-hmm.
And that we want to forget that because it makes us feel bad universally as the United States of America. We just want to forget all about that horrible stuff. Meanwhile, there are people who are suffering because of that horrible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Suffering today for things that happened over 200 years ago, 400 years ago. So if we're willing to, it's a privilege to be perky. But something that was said to me often, not so much anymore, but why don't black people smile? They're grouchy all the time. Okay, well, this is, I really can't talk to you today because everybody should understand why that might be. We're beyond the racism 101 question now. We should be in the 500 range class on racism because we have all seen the stories. We all know there really is no excuse for folks to not get why certain people might not be skipping down the road singing, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." And just understanding that makes it easier to connect with that person and do business with that person and to care about that person. They're not there to please you. There was a time when that was the case. That if a black person didn't throw a smile on in front of a white person, they could get beaten. That wasn't that long ago. They could get killed. So just being free to be funky is like, freedom. And that's why sometimes some of our teen moms were just a handful until they, even within themselves, were able to move on to another step of connecting because they didn't get hurt by Jenna or Tess ever. Even when they knew they were wrong. Every little apology was wrong. I know it was a little difficult. Like, okay. We still love you. We're still here. You call us up and you're in labor, we're still gonna come.
I got to go over about a year, it was October of last year. A teen client who I've stayed close with, we sponsor her family's Christmas every year, and other things. She had asked me to be her doula for her latest, and I could not because of my life, what was going on in my life. Oh, was it last year or the year before? Anyway, and I called her randomly and she's like, "Oh, I'm in labor. I'm at the hospital." And I was like, "Well, I'm on lunch." So I went and I saw her last baby being born.
Oh.
So like, And we joke, like we now are able to like, she'll joke about some of the stunts she pulled out, you know, she's able to make fun of me for some of the shit I had to learn, you know, like we've made that long relationship. But I don't know if you knew that, Samsarah, that I got to see.
You told me.
Oh, I did. Okay, good.
You tell me. I remember thinking how precious that was. You know, we're just making these beautiful connections. I mean, I think like actual love slays racism dead. When people really care about each other, when they're not projecting on each other, when they're standing in full authenticity with each other and love each other, there's no room for racism at all. Shrivels away, blows away in the wind. You know, I love the connections that I have with the clients. Then we're no longer teens who are young women in the world. Some are still kind of struggling. Some are doing great, but they know that they can reach out to me, you know, and they ask about y'all, the folks who worked with Jenna, the folks that worked with Tess. They'll ask about y'all, which makes me smile. And, you know, it's entirely possible that you could have been the most healthy relationship, the most healthy connection they've had with a white person in their life. And that's significant. That's generational healing. That's cleaning up karma for people before you who did stuff, not y'all, because y'all don't do no stuff, you know, but it's good to do. 7 generations back, 7 generations ahead, it's a good thing. So.
I remember one thing you said, Samsarah, because I remember Tess Tess was always wonderful. Like I look back and I'm just like, Tess was always wonderful. But I remember we were working with a student, a white doula student who just couldn't get past the hurdles. And I remember something that you told me, I'll never forget, Samsarah, that you're like, you know, sometimes when people want to, like when like white people want to work with someone of color, like even if in their heart or whatever their intention is to do it, like then their racist ancestors come from the grave and they're just like, no, don't do it. Don't service this Black woman. Don't rub her feet. That they just come out from the grave, beyond, you know.
And you can see some white folks unable to do it because of that. That, you know, we do need to disconnect and be our authentic self, because to be at the feet of a Black woman, what does that mean? How does that feel cellularly? There are ancestors that are not too keen on all this fraternization, right? So we respectfully tell them to, you know, go back to where you were. I'm not to judge exactly where you came from, but you get to go back there, because right now in this life, I'm going to help this lady have her baby, and you were bothering me. So be gone.
And like Jenna, I think Jenna mentioned something. I mean, it wasn't what you said, but the phrase like "do no harm" came into my mind. Like if you are not in a place to be of service in a respectful, caring, like all of the things that like you say, Samsarah, like really serving, like it's an incredible honor to me to rub your feet. Like I am honored to be here rubbing your feet and watching your power. But if somebody can't be in that, then like it's probably toxic and harmful for them to be in it. Like you need to go do some work.
Well, that's the problem that we have with some of our medical folk.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That they're not understanding that they're servants. And they're having all that arrogance and privilege, no matter what color they are. And they're doing harm. So I hope everybody felt that this conversation was helpful. I want to give big thanks to Tess and Jenna. You're both beloved to me. Always make sure I know how you are and what you're doing, because I will always be praying for you, always loving you. And it's an honor to work with both of you, an honor to help you birth your beautiful firstborn teenage person. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's beautiful. So we're going to end. I see a little hearts on the screen. That's so cute. Is next week, what is next week? Jesselyn, do we have you wishes to you? Yes, you are. There you are. Is your workshop next week? Okay. So oxytocin next week. All about it for birth. So much fun. You want to come back, let me know, folks, and I will send you the link. Because it's fun. Thank you again. We're going to say good night. We'll see everybody next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Jenna.
Hi, Jesse.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Nighty night.
Night night.
Hi, Tess.
I was like, I see what's happening.
Samsarah. I didn't know I was gonna get to see your face.
It's very good to see you.
Yeah, you look great.
How are you?
Yeah, for an old mom of a teenager now. What?
You don't look like you don't look it.
I keep joking that I don't know how I have a teenager because I haven't matured any. So I'm still like pretty immature. My first thoughts go to like, rock and roll party. I'm like, oh no, that's not my life anymore. Oh yeah.